Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back. Welcome back to another episode of the Hot Mic Podcast. Hot Mic Podcast is where divergent points of view debate and discuss hot topics. And we are back in the building. What's up, everybody? Nate the
What's
Barbarian with
up?
you. What's up? What's up, good people? Joined by Kevin Aldridge. How you doing, Kevin? Can't hear you, bro. Think you
Sorry, I
might.
had myself muted. That might be a good thing.
Oh yeah, I think that would be excellent. I mean, from time to time.
What's up, bro? What's up, Phil? How you doing?
Besides the good people,
Good to
I'm
see you.
here
Good to see
too,
you. What's up,
guys.
Terrace?
Greetings and salutations.
Good to see you. And TNT, how you doing, TNT?
I'm good. How's everybody? Welcome, welcome.
Absolutely. Good to be back with you for as long as we still have a planet. We're good. We're good for today. Tomorrow, not so sure about it, but a lot of good people with you. Listen, so great to have you guys for this episode. Lots to discuss. To all the people who may be in the chat, good afternoon to you. We're streaming live on Facebook and also on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Hot Mic Podcast HQ. And if you want to join the show, you can join via audio or video. Love to see your face if you want to join the crew for a question or a comment. Maybe you want to tell Terrace how wrong he is. Great. Here's your opportunity. Hey, maybe you want to tell TNT how wrong she is.
Now that's my job.
Exactly.
That's my
Exactly.
job.
Phil knows his role. Listen, all you got to do is click on that link. I've highlighted it on Facebook and also YouTube. Click on that link. It'll put you backstage. Once I see you, I'll text a message to you and bring you on. You can do audio or video. If you just want to call in, you can do that. Just turn your camera off and you still should be able to join the show. Let's get straight into it. Lots of stuff to talk about. Some of this stuff may not be on your radar screen, might be off the beaten path, but we shall see. I want to kick things off by talking about a story that got a lot of attention on social media. Less to do with politics and more to do with maybe it's the politics of sports. But I want to play a clip for you and a little bit of a video. And I want you to tell me what you think about this. Check this out. I'm going to roll this and then we'll get started.
Okay, after a couple times hitting her, my baton got stuck behind her back like this and it rolled up her back. I lost my balance, and when I pumped my arms again, she got hit.
It appears intentional, but Alayla says it was accidental.
But I know my intentions, and I would never hit somebody on purpose. I didn't have to see a first video, second video, 10th video. I know 100% that she won't do this to nobody.
Her parents outraged at the backlash. The IC Norcom relay team was disqualified, a ruling that a local USA track and field official finds questionable. He says a play-by-play look shows that the Brookville athlete was running closely to Alayla.
If a person comes up on the outside, they got to be a full stride ahead of me before they can cut in front of me.
The other family spoke with the news station in Roanoke asking for an apology from Alayla, something she wants to give, but she says the other athlete hasn't been receptive, blocking her on social media. And
Sort with court papers. So this is very serious. This young girl, her name is Alayla, coming out of Virginia. She seems to be emotionally distraught. Now, the other young lady, to my knowledge, suffered a very serious injury, a concussion, and perhaps a fracture to her skull. Very serious. But Alayla there says that, hey, it's just a bad angle. I know what it looks like, but she didn't mean to do any harm to that young woman. Hopefully you got a chance to watch the video or you can see a little bit from that video. I've got another angle that I'll share as well. But what do you think? Do you agree with her? Do you believe her, should I say? Do you believe this young girl? Was that just a mistake or is she trying to cover up?
I actually believe her. I looked at the video and just knowing, not saying that I'm a runner or anything. That was never my field. I was more in basketball, but just knowing when you are running, your arms do flail, you're in motion. And that's hard to stop in mid motion without stopping completely or slowing down completely if somebody is kind of cutting you off at the same time. And I don't think a lot of people are taking in consideration. And that is a move in running too. Like you're trying to pass up the person, but when you cut almost into their lane, what is she supposed to do? So for me, I believe that it was an accident. I honestly believe that just like her parents says, that's not even something. Who would do that on purpose in view of all the audience, cameras and everything, and to think that there wouldn't be any repercussions afterwards? It don't even make sense. But it's unfortunate. I hate that the young lady was injured after that. But I really don't think that that was done like a flagrant foul. Like, I'm trying to think of that one basketball player that intentionally fouls people all the time. His name is on the tip of my tongue.
Draymond Green.
Yeah, that dude. I don't think she was doing one of those moves. So.
All right. What do you guys think? Anyone jump in there?
Yeah, I kind of I agree with T. Nicole. I think it's unfortunate because this is what you get when you get video. Everybody is kind of gonna see what they want to see out of that video. If you think like it was intentional, you're gonna believe it was intentional, regardless of what she says. Admittedly, it didn't look good. At first glance, when I saw it, I was like, man, she just clocked her. And I would say that, you kind of got to know, without knowing the young lady personally and what her demeanor has consistently been and what type of competitor that she is. Like, if this is outside of somebody's character, like, I think that's what you have to take into account. And none of us know this young lady personally, right? We're just going off of what we've seen on the video and in news reports. But I think those who know her teammates, other people that she's competed against, I think you got to kind of take into account what that track record is. I mean, look, I played competitive basketball up through college. In the heat of competition, sometimes your emotions can get the best of you.
Were you kind of known as the enforcer?
Absolutely, Phil. I was to be feared. I was Draymond Green.
That.
Not.
Okay. Kind of figured you for that.
But I'd be lying to you if I said that there weren't times in games where testosterone gets up, you get into shoving, not necessarily doing anything that's like flagrant or dirty, but in the heat of competition, sometimes things happen. So that's what I would say is, you got to take a look at this lady's track record, what her demeanor is. It seems like she's attempted to reach out and offer an apology, which is, also something that's there. The thing I find most unfortunate, and this is par for the course these days, is once stuff like this gets on social media, like, people take it to another level. I mean, regardless of if she did it on purpose or if it was an accident, these are like high school kids. These are young girls, young kids who make mistakes. And I think the way that grown folks respond to this type of stuff and overreact to it, to where you're doxing or trolling a high school kid. All of us did some stupid ish when we were teenagers in high school, that if it got out on social media, nobody would want to be raked over the coals like that. So I think you got to keep it in perspective that these are young ladies, these are kids, and that's not to excuse it if it was on purpose. But I think when grown folks start taking it too far and things like that, that's the unfortunate part of this.
Hey, Tarris, now, if I understand correctly, your son is actually running track right now. Is that correct? So what's your take on it?
I was listening to you guys. From watching my son run in high school and all the way up, now he's a collegiate athlete, Conference USA. So proud of him.
What team is he on and what events?
Western Kentucky University. He runs the 60 meter hurdles and the 200 meters. He's the 4x100 and the 4x400, and he's outdoor. He's 100 meter and 110 meter hurdles. So he's a multi-sport athlete. But watching him,
is that a result of the paternal genes being dominant or the maternal genes?
I'm going to say it's a combination of both. It's a combination of both. It comes from. He comes from.
All right. Athlete. Congratulations. That's great, though.
From watching my son run from 7th grade up, track is extremely competitive. It's extreme. It's. They talk more trash before they run, and I had to adjust as a parent. You know what I'm saying? Because I feel I have to adjust as a parent to see that. When I see that, and I'm gonna just be honest, because I'm always honest on that. She did that on purpose. They talking trash before they even line up. They talking trash. My son, I had to learn this from my son because he lost a race. I was like, why you lose that race? He said, Dad, I'm out here. I know what I'm doing. It's a psych out game. And if you look at statistics, in track now is one of the leading sports in the nation. And these kids are running fast. I'm talking, they're running so fast now. And there's money in this game, and they're starting to, and you're seeing these celebrities like Messiah Russell run and get NIL deals, and the money in track is getting, and you're seeing all these guys who they're taking track and they're making it more marketable. And my son's all in. So I see it. In my opinion on that girl, she did it on purpose. If it was my son, I'd make him take accountability for that. I would not be saying, it's a mistake. No, as a parent, I'd be making them take accountability. You got to heat the moment. You hit that girl. Go ahead and take ownership for it and move on with your life. Because once you tell one lie, you got to keep telling lies and lies and lies and lies to back it up. I'm not saying she's lying, but I'm just saying from my perspective for watching sports, this specific – we went to my son's senior year, in between the junior senior year. We went to North Carolina for AAU championship. They shut the whole AAU thing down in Greensboro, North Carolina, because they were fighting in the stands, parents, crowd. Shut it down. They said, ain't no more running today because it's all us. Ain't no more running today because y'all can't know how to act. Police ran everybody up out of the AAU thing. So I think she did it on purpose, that's just from my perspective. So, but that's just my lens from seeing how competitive the sport is and how much trash these boys and girls talk to each other before that gun goes off.
Hey, Phil, what's your take? Then I'll jump in.
Yeah, I defer to Tarris on track because he's obviously more knowledgeable, though I am kind of blown away by what Tarris said about the trash talk. I mean, you would think the coaches on these teams would basically police that and say, hey, that isn't what we do. But I have to throw out a little piece of trivia here. What similar incident occurred, a famous incident in the 1972 Olympics? Do any of you know?
I thought you were going to go with the Nancy Kerrigan when she clipped her.
No. That was skating. This is track. This is exactly what happened here. Anybody know? All right. Well, now you're making me feel real old. Thanks, Nicole. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. But anyway, all right. Anyway, there was a famous U.S. runner named Jim Ryan, who was greatest in the world in the 68 Olympics in Mexico. He came in second because of the altitude to Kip Keino, who was a famous runner from Kenya. So he was favored to win in 72, in Munich. But guess what? On one of the preliminary, what do they call them? Before you get to the semis or something, somebody hit him, fell down. And he was so stunned, he just couldn't, he got up, but he couldn't make it, so he didn't even qualify. So I thought that's kind of an interesting little piece of trivia there.
Oh,
he, by the way, became a congressman from Kansas down the road, but that's neither here nor there.
From my perspective, I think she did it on purpose. And I think it's like the heat of the moment and the passion. I do not believe that she meant to hit her within the head with the baton and to cause all of the damage that he did. But I definitely believe that just eyeballing the video from multiple angles, that she meant to make some type of physical contact with her. To my eye, the other girl, the victim, slowed down a little bit. And I think it surprised her when she lunged out and she delivered a harder blow than she meant to. And Tarris says something I agree with. If that was my daughter, I make her own it behind closed doors. Listen, whatever you say out there, but right here, you meant to do that to that girl. Keep it real. You didn't mean to hurt her, but you did mean to make some contact. Happens in basketball all the time. All the time. You mean to hit them with an elbow. You mean to hit them with the shoulder. But sometimes it goes a little too far. You hit them a little harder than that. And but I get she's playing the game. She's probably got eligibility and college potential scholarships on the line. So I get they're playing the game, and this is what they have to say in order to cleanse her image. But female athletes can be every bit as competitive. It can be every bit as nasty. It can be every bit as physical as when men play. So that's what I saw.
Do you guys agree that the coaches, when this happens in any sport, should kind of let people know to cut out the trash talking?
To a
Do you guys
degree.
agree with
To a
that?
degree.
It's such a trash talk is such a part of sports, man, on any level. I mean, I get it, particularly at the high school level, you try to maintain a certain amount of sportsmanship and things of that nature. And I think it's easier to police it at the high school level than when you get to college and certainly in professional sports. But I think the trash talk is such a part of the game that it's really hard to knock that out. And then especially if you're doing it before the competition, a lot of this stuff is outside of the purview of the coaches. I mean, if we standing around waiting for a race to get started and I'm chirping in your ear, the coach might not know, he might not be within earshot to know what I'm saying, to my competitor.
Yeah, but he could let them know in advance.
Well, I'm sure they do. Look, I don't know a coach out there. I don't know too many coaches out there that don't try to send that message to their team, like, hey, this is the way we want you to play. This is how you represent. And players gonna do what they gonna do anyway. I mean, I've played on teams like that where coaches have given the speech and guys still go out and do what they gonna do anyway. I mean, for many players, it's the trash part. The trash talk is part of the motivation. It's what gets you. It's what gets you fired up. Now, not everybody can do that. I was not one of those players that could get embroiled in that type of back and forth while I was playing without it throwing my game off. There were other guys that I played with that thrived off of that, right? So I hear what you're saying, Phil, but I just don't think that that's realistic because guys are going to do what they're going to do.
I teach my
coach. I don't care. These days, a coach is not going to take his best player off the court because he's trash talking.
Can I say one thing?
Okay, maybe you should.
There's a correct way to do it. Like I'll teach my kid how to say, you can't guard me. You just can't guard me. I'm about to dust you on this. And do it if the best trash talk is when nobody else knows you're doing it. Is that what I tell my kids? Have that confidence, have that swag to be able to do it. But taking trash talk out of the game, it just might as well not play the game. What are you playing for? You can't talk about it.
But going back to the runner, I just find it hard to believe, like I said, in front of the views of everyone, that you would do something like this intentionally. And competitiveness, every sport is competitive. Trash talk is in every sport. It usually is before you get started and afterwards. And of course, during it, just depending on what type of sport you're playing. But in the midst of the competition, when you're running, it's very difficult to imagine someone like, I'm so out of control right now that I'm going to pop you in the head with this baton in front of the judges and the audience and everything else, in front of cameras, and think that there's no repercussions. At the end of the day, these individuals want to win. They want to represent their school or their team well, and doing something like that was just be total opposite of the total objective. And for me, it just don't seem rational. Now, if she's like we said, I don't know this individual. If we come to find out this is somebody, and I wouldn't just put this on trash talking, but if she was just someone that, have some sort of record of just being in fights and kind of have some bipolar disorder, just then yeah, I can give her that. But the parents know their child. And with the one parent saying, I don't have to see the video to know that my child wouldn't do that. That's not who they are. And then on top of that, and now the courts are involved. So no, I would not advise, even if deep down inside that was her intent. We're not even going to discuss that, because now there's legal ramifications and everything else. Her coming on TV, being very emotional about it. I mean, that's a whole lot. If you felt the way you felt, then we've seen a lot of people, they just stand on it that's what she deserved. She was really had that type of attitude and demeanor. She wouldn't be apologetic. She wouldn't be crying on TV and saying otherwise. At least I think.
Yeah. This might be the cynical journalist in me, just because, and I say this all the time, a lot of times I'm biased and jaded, because you recognize that people do what's necessary to protect themselves. So while I don't disagree with TNT in terms of where she's coming from her heart, this young lady do recognize, and her family does recognize, the stakes that are at play here. You talking about college scholarships. You're talking about a lot of things that you could lose by admitting that, you know, you did this intentionally. So there's sort of a self-serving nature behind the denial, you know, because there are going to be consequences beyond what she's already suffered if she would have come out and admit that, like, yeah, this is what I did, and I got caught up in the heat of the moment and I was angry. Like, sometimes you don't recover from that, you know, as an athlete or even, you know, reputation wise. Like, that's something that can follow you, you know, for the rest of your life, or something that you did as a teenager. So there are a lot of
and not say
no. A lot of reasons. There could be a lot of self-defense things that's behind those tears. That's not a genuine. That may not necessarily be genuinely like, oh, I didn't really do this, and this is why I'm reacting emotionally that way. So that's just part of my cynical nature of again, each situation is separate. This is a totally different young lady than what. But I've seen people get on TV and cry and be guilty as sin. You know, you come to find out later on, you know, they done did all this crying and whatnot, and it wasn't me. And then the evidence come out, and then it's like, okay, well, you know, how sincere was those tears actually? So, you know,
well, you know,
I want to show y'all this. I had this behind me, and this is a baton. Just happened to have a baton behind me. That's how ingrained our track family is. And even if you could, this ain't causing no concussion. This is not causing, even if she did pluck her real good, you know what I'm saying? Even if she did get her real good,
right? Yeah,
that's not going to do. It's like hitting her upside the head with a pick. You know what I'm saying? Or it's not going to do what she said. That's why I'm saying own it. Just own what you did. You hit her in the head. Take your
running at full speed.
But I do understand what you're
still running at full speed. So, you know.
But I understand where you're coming from. Now she's got to stand on it. If she's going to stay, she got to stand on it. But like what Kevin said, if the evidence comes out and they start slowing this thing up and they start doing step for step, and they see her facial, and they start really breaking it down, and they say the evidence shows that she did this on purpose, and then she's gonna go out wrong and strong. She's gonna go out wrong and strong. This, and especially when you break it down into this sport, and her being a young black woman, she's got to, like, when it comes down to it, she got to own it. And as a parent, come on, girl, you know you meant to do that.
And they might have had that conversation, but
you know,
jump in there.
I was just going to say, one of the things, there's a school in Cincinnati, Cincinnati Hills Christian Academy, and the theme of their athletic department is, it sounds a little cheesy, but it's win twice. And what they mean is, one win is to win the game, but the other is to kind of honor God with your behavior. And, you know, I don't care how much trash talking or whatever it is that other people or other teams do. I kind of like that. I like that philosophy, that it's important to not only win the race, but also to conduct yourself in an honorable
I like that
manner.
too. But I think the only way, I'd like to know what the opponents of that school think about whether the athletes really live up to that moniker or not, right? Because it sounds like it's in a vacuum. But when you get out there and you're competing, it's a whole nother animal. And some people, when they get out there in the heat of the battle, something else comes out of them. Some of the best athletes are like that, right?
Yeah, it's an aspiration.
And that's what I see with this young lady. Like I said, I believe she meant to make contact, but I don't think that she meant to seriously hurt her. But, you know, Kevin said something about, you know, her future. And yeah, we can see, you know, the parents, I believe they're playing politics, and rightly so, right? But you know what? She'll be able to get over this because the girl that she injured is a black girl. Had it been a white girl, this is something that would have stayed with her probably for the rest of her life, right? But because she's doing this to another black girl, you know, she'll take some time away, step away for a little bit, you know, clean up a little bit, come back. It'll be forgotten in about a month, and we won't be talking about this anymore.
I think you're reading a little bit too
much
into that, Nathan.
Because black lives don't matter in this country, even to other black people in some cases. So we'll see. This will have no long-term ramifications on her whatsoever. In fact, she'll probably get a coach who'll be like, you know what, I like that dog in you. Just clean it up a little bit and you'll be just okay, sis. That's exactly what's going to happen. Keep it real.
So you believe she a mini Trayvon Green?
I just believe that. I believe in that moment,
Draymond.
she meant to make Draymond. I don't believe she's like a Draymond, but I think in that moment something came out of her. Something good came out of her. You want that, but the way that she exercised it was obviously not the right way. And again, if you look at the video, I believe that the victim slowed down just a little bit when she felt the contact, and it made the blow and the follow through even harder. I don't think she meant to harm her, but I do believe she meant to create physical contact.
So think about this. Okay. Say you walking down the street, right? And I guess you're walking or you're jogging or whatever. And then you see, let's say, a pit bull chasing after you. Are you moving like this? Are you like this? How is your arms flaring? Is it real high up? Or is it going to be like people who's trying to get away and run? I think it's like, and so that action, I think that's an automatic involuntary movement of runners when they're running and they're trying to get speed and they're trying to go faster. Think about it.
And it was a close.
If you're being chased, are you running like, or are you trying to get away? Like, what are we doing? I'm just saying.
I do think one of the things that you could argue that's in her favor is it was a close contact situation. Like when you look at when the girls are turning the corner and she's coming in front of her, they are extremely close. And I think like when you look at, we haven't really seen like the angles from like the behind angle, I think is the one that you need to see. Like it's unfortunate that there wasn't like a camera or an angle that was behind it, because if you listen to the girl's explanation, she tried to make it seem like her baton got caught up in behind her. She said it ran up her back, kind of got caught on her back and ran up. And when she came through with the follow through, like that's when she really hit her. Now you can't really see that from the angles that you've seen. Like a behind angle would kind of be like a definitive look on it that would really either prove or disprove this girl's story one way or the other. But I also kind of feel like it's similar to like a football play. You know, when you put it in slow motion, it always makes it look worse than it does. You know, they call it in the NFL, like they call it bang, bang plays. You know, you see the hit on TV and they slow it down, and in slow motion, the hit always looks worse in slow-mo than it does when it's the bang bang play. So this reminds me kind of like that. Is, you know, I imagine in the heat of the moment as you're running, this is kind of like a bang bang thing. But when you slow it down on the video, it may make it look a little bit worse. Now again, that's not to say she didn't do it, but the slow-mo certainly don't help her.
But in reality, that's all happening in less than a second. Like they are moving extremely fast, and it's extremely hard to stop yourself when you're moving that fast. It really is. So I don't think people over analyzing it, you know, but it could be either way. Neither one of us can say like for absolutely what her intent was. And so you just got to be careful with that. I hope that's not the case, but I don't go with that. I'm not believing that right now.
When you say they're involving the court system, that's what I'm saying. When they're, like Kevin just said, when they slow that down, and I can see a prosecutor, I can see it'd be an easier sell for her saying she did do it than defending and saying that she didn't. And without the tears, wipe the tears off. We're sitting in front of a jury. You know what I'm saying? If this becomes a criminal case and she just don't own it.
Yeah.
You know, if she's without a hospital and
doubt or something, but I have doubt.
Yeah.
But if it's civil, the bar is much lower, you know, for those type of situations. But if it's criminal, you know, all the person have to do is raise doubt, and there's plenty of doubt there. You don't know the intent of this person's mind. And really, from my understanding, it was the onslaught of comments and social media that, you know, pushed her to, you know, say things like, I'm getting all these attacks, people are saying these things, and then here comes the lawsuit. It wasn't like, oh, let me say something now because the lawsuit, but it was social media and people's reaction to what happened.
Okay.
All right, Phil is back. Let's move on. So there was a moment this week in the sports world between LeBron James and Stephen A. Smith. We don't have any audio. There is some video, but just shows LeBron being very animated. Basically, he was checking Stephen A. Smith because Stephen A. Smith had made a lot of comments in a professional capacity as a broadcast journalist, talker for ESPN. Stephen A. Smith spoke with the media afterward, or not with the media, but he spoke on his show, First Take. And here's some of what he had to say.
God has blessed us with that. There's a lot that's going on, and there's a lot of stories that are there to be told. And I just feel it's necessary to remind people, Molly.
I'm an overpowered leaf blower.
So let this commercial go past and then I'll play the rest of it. But he goes on just to basically talk about how, he felt like LeBron James was coming at him like a father and not as LeBron James. And, for folks who don't know, Stephen A., along with a lot of people, have been very critical of Bronny James, and rightly so, because he hasn't really panned out, at least so far, to be a real NBA prospect. And there's a lot of people, including myself, who believe that the only reason why Bronny was even given this opportunity is because LeBron James is his father. And, let me just give my take real quick and I'll throw it to the crew. I just felt like LeBron was out of bounds on this one. Your son is in the NBA now. You said before he got there that he was better than a lot of people in the NBA. It just hasn't turned out that way. And so, we can go back and forth as to whether Bronny should be in the NBA. He's there now, and he's there primarily. I don't think anybody can argue against this, primarily because of the influence of his father. And I'll give his father credit. I think LeBron has earned the right, if you want to put it that way, to be able to give his son an opportunity, right? But what LeBron doesn't have is the right to stop people from talking about the fact that you gave your son an opportunity and how it all panned out. To me, this is a straight up sucker move by LeBron James. I mean, just look at this. Look at the size difference between these two men. Look at the difference. This ain't no fight. You don't get no cred for rolling up on somebody this much smaller than you in a public venue. I thought it was weak in my opinion, but what's your take?
I got a lot of opinions, so I'll let others go before
I'll go first on this one. LeBron hit Bronny's a nepo baby, but when you look at his stats right now in the G League, he's got good stats. He's average 21 points a game. He's for the 56th or 55th pick. He's ranking right there with the amount of money that he's being paid with the other picks. So he's doing what someone picked in his position would do. I think what his dad did was flex the muscle and say, "Don't nobody else draft LeBron. I want to play with my son," and I get it, man. I'd want to play with my son too. I get to do that every day with my son. But I don't think that LeBron should have ran up on him and said anything like that. I do believe that that's a sucker move. But Stephen A. Smith, I somewhat think this is orchestrated because Stephen A. Smith needs something to talk about. And Stephen A. Smith is everywhere, but I don't think that LeBron James Jr. or LeBronny James needs to get all the heat that he's getting because he's performing just as well as someone else in his position. He's not LeBron James. He's Bronny James, and he's doing, if you compare his stats with anybody else who's picked where he's picked with the same trajectory, he's doing just as good or better, in my opinion.
I think Stephen A. Smith got a big mouth. I really can't stand him anyway. And so a lot of times, the repercussions you get from your big old mouth, will and so for me, I'm just saying, but for Bron, it's hard. It's going to be hard for him anyway because who his father is. Those are some big shoes to fill. And so the critiques on him are probably more than if he was just, some other individual coming into the league. He probably wouldn't even get so much attention as he does. But, in comparison, I think about Beyonce and her daughter Blue, and how she brings her to the stage. If there's something she want to do, most celebrities, they keep their kids in the background or whatever. But if you do have that child that actually want to follow in your footsteps, you of course you want to protect them from the industry, protect them from the cruelty of people. And what Stephen A. Smith does, he goes over and beyond than just the simple critique. If he didn't have a good game or whatever else, it's just like all this talking about, oh, you are only here because of your father. True or not, you don't let people create a narrative for you. So whatever LeBron James went over there and said to him, and it was very short and it was very simple, it made him change his tone quickly. Like he said, that wasn't a player. That wasn't LeBron James. That was a father. And I understand. Of course you do. You know what I'm saying? Because fathers do understand. They're going to protect their son. Like, why I'm going to sit up here and let this blowhard just keep going and going and going about my child, like, killing his confidence and everything else. Like, he don't belong here. Like, he shouldn't be here. You know what I'm saying? Michael Jordan, didn't start off great. He didn't get on every team or whatever. But what he built and became afterwards, being able to push forward and everything else, the adversity is an incredible story. So quit trying to tear this young man down, give him a shot, and quit trying to go over and beyond. And this is coming from a black man. You sitting up here, you going all out of your way to tear this young man down. Yeah, if I was LeBron James, I would check him too. Shut up.
All right. Anybody else want to jump in there? Phil?
I would just say, as we approach the holiest time of the year, that being the NCAA basketball tournament, my thoughts are focused on March Madness, not on whatever's going on in pro basketball.
Gotcha. All right.
However, at some point in the next 2 weeks, I hope we'll be able to, get into that and perhaps have some discussion about that. So all right. Let's just keep that in mind.
All right. So I'm going to go now. I'm going to ask everybody to abide with me for a little bit because, like I said, I have a lot to say on this, and I'm coming at it from a lot of different perspectives.
You better be on my side.
Coming at it from the standpoint of someone who played basketball, obviously not professionally like LeBron or Bronny. Coming at it from a journalist, somebody who does journalism in the same way that Stephen A. Smith does, and coming at it as a black person and how I see this and how I've listened to a lot of different things. First, I'll start with what Tarris said. I agree with Tarris 100%. When you look at where Bronny James is in terms of how he performs as like the 55th pick as a rookie, he plays like everybody who gets drafted in that position in the NBA looks like. If you are the 55th pick in the NBA draft, you look like Bronny James when you get out there and play. In fact, Kobe Bryant, who was drafted much higher than Bronny James, struggled as a rookie in his first few games in the NBA. So there's that. So there's the good point that Tarris made that even though expectations for Bronny James are high, they were probably too high, namely based on his name, but also because of what LeBron did. And this is where Stephen A's criticism has been, never of Bronny James, but of LeBron James. That's who Stephen A. Smith has been criticizing because he said, you did this to your son. You come out and you make comments by saying that Bronny James is better than half the guys in the league. LeBron James said that. Stephen A. Smith didn't say that. And what Stephen A. was pleading with LeBron is don't do that because you're setting your son up for exactly what you're seeing now. So people are responding to Bronny because of how LeBron propped his son up, because of everything that LeBron did. Hey, whoever drafts my son, that's where I want to be because I want to play with my son. So what Stephen A's criticism is dude, you set this up. You set this stage, you put this pressure unduly on your son. And so now all of the criticism that's coming at your son is criticism because of the environment that you created around the hype that you set up for him. And you should have backed up off of that. So Stephen A's criticisms was never of Bronny James directly. I think anybody who watches NBA basketball, right, and who knows NBA basketball, if you're honest, you look at it and you say, Bronny James don't need to be on the Lakers. He's in the G League. That's where he belongs, and he's playing well in the G League. But right now, Bronny James is not an NBA player, who should be getting significant minutes, right? Like most people who are drafted 55th in the NBA are not, right? So he's got a lot of growth. He's got a lot of growth to do. But LeBron created that environment, and that is what Stephen A was saying. Now, here's why I think, I'm not going to take anything away from LeBron for defending his son. But again, I think this just further goes toward the negative narrative that's being created for Bronny James, because LeBron makes his son look weak. Bronny James is a grown man playing in the NBA. I don't need my pops stepping up and speaking for me, trying to check Stephen A. Smith. Hey, Pops, let me handle that. I need to get out from under you to form my own legacy, and I can't do that if you running up on reporters trying to check them for me, because that further makes it look like I can't stand on my own and I need my dad to step up. Bronny James is an NBA player. And when you step into that, and when you step into that arena, when you step into that profile, especially when you are playing on the most popular professional basketball team in the world, your dad is the most famous professional athlete in the world. You got all of that smoke coming at you if you're a member of the Lakers and you LeBron James' son. That comes with the territory. So you got to be prepared to take all of that smoke, and you can't be sensitive. You can't be sensitive about it. If you're going to take everything that comes with being LeBron's son and get you in a privileged position to play for the Lakers, you know how many cats would kill to play for the Lakers? You got to be able to take that criticism and smoke. Last thing I'll say.
I got an interesting perspective that I got to bring up. LeBron James being let
me finish this last spot, Tarris, and then I'll let you take it. Let me say this last thing. The last thing that I would say is what I didn't like about what LeBron did is everybody and their mama out there talking about this, not just Stephen A. Smith. This is a perfect example of what I call unnecessary black on black crime. And here's what I mean by that. LeBron James ain't running up to Skip Bayless, who talks about LeBron incessantly, runs him down all the time, says he's not Michael Jordan, and he always comes up short. LeBron is not running up on the white reporters, checking them, but he rolled up on Stephen A. Smith and checked Stephen A. Smith. Now, some might say, well, Stephen A. Smith is a black journalist out there. He shouldn't be talking about the black man. This is where I'm going to come in as a black journalist, because Stephen A. addressed this on his podcast. And I get this all the time, too, as a black journalist. Part of being a journalist is you got to call them how you see them. You got to report the facts. If you give an opinion, you got to give your opinion regardless. I sometimes have to talk about people who I genuinely have relationship with, who I might genuinely like. But I also have a job to do, and I can't do my job with credibility if I'm going to pull punches for people that I know or my friends or who look like me when the truth is evident to everybody else out there. I have no credibility, and I'm not doing my job as a professional. So I gotta go out there and do that. But sometimes when you're black and you say things negatively about black people in the course of your job, you get that comeback that, oh, you should have known better, or you're not black because you shouldn't be talking negatively about other black people because of the history of negative portrayals of black people in the media. And I don't say that none of that is not true. But Stephen A. brought this up, is like, when do you, as a black person, when do you get the license to be able to do your job as a journalist without having to worry about carrying the weight and the water and the history of relations between your community and the media? And LeBron pointed out, he was like, or Stephen A. pointed out, he was like, people negate the thousands of stories and times that he's praised black athletes for like the 5% of the time that he has to be negative. It's like people want to focus on that 5% and say that he's not black out of this 5% while ignoring the 95% of the time that he does the positive stuff. So I just thought that was a good point that he made. And one of the things that I thought was actually a really good point is I wonder would LeBron have rolled up Skip Bayless if Skip Bayless was sitting courtside at the Lakers game and ran up on that white man who has disparaged him relentlessly from the time he came in the NBA. He ain't checked Skip Bayless once, but you do that to Stephen A.
I get it. We got Babe
LeBron,
Truth with
LeBron
us.
James.
Hold on 1 second, Tarris. Hold on 1 second. We got a listener with us. Yo, Babe Truth, can you hear us? Yo, Babe Truth. Can't hear you, man. Got to fix your audio, bro. We cannot hear you.
Can he unmute?
Got to unmute, bro.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see what happens. Hey, Tarris, while we wait for Babe Truth, go ahead, bro.
Yeah, okay. With another interesting perspective, LeBron James is a Democrat shield. I say that because of during the pandemic, whenever they were playing in the bubble, if they would have shut down the NBA, it would have changed things completely. The election would have been changed, everything, but they made them play. Barack Obama went to LeBron James and said, y'all gonna play. So they played. Fast forward, Stephen A. Smith starting to get into, like he said, he's a journalist. He's starting to get into the political world. It's something we talked about in the barbershop. He's starting to get in the political world, going on The View, telling the truth to the Democrats that they don't want to hear. They get Stephen A. Smith get on the truth. So what if LeBron James' wife got in LeBron James's ear, and LeBron James had a Will Smith to Chris Rock moment, and she said, I want you to say something to him because he's stepping out of he's stepping out of line. He's getting off into he's saying too much, and you need to step over there and say something to him to get him back in line.
Yeah, that sounds ridiculous.
It sounds ridiculous. Everything I say
that could
ridiculous.
not be true.
Everything I say sounds ridiculous.
Nah, don't do that. I didn't say everything. That sounds ridiculous to me, man. But leave it to Tarris to come up with some type of left-wing conspiracy with no evidence, no evidence whatsoever, man.
The bubble's not enough evidence. The bubble's not enough evidence.
Yeah, the bubble's not enough evidence. No, the bubble's not enough evidence at all. Not at all. But you know what? Go ahead. No, go ahead, TNT. I want y'all to get in. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, give credit to LeBron James that he didn't act like Will Smith and introduce what did the 5 hands say to the face and slap him. He could have done that, but he did not.
He would never have done that.
Exactly.
No, he wouldn't have did that.
I mean, just the mere fact, like with so much going on, like, you know, the camera's zooming in or whatever, but most of the time it could have been talking about anybody and anything else or whatnot. That was like 2 seconds of a short, brief, hey, bro, quit talking about my son or whatever he said. And that was it. And so, I mean, it's within his right to, you know, feel and defend. I don't think Bronny James said, please, daddy, check Stephen A. Smith for me because he's making me feel bad. I don't think that happened. I just think that in his own provocation, he saw the opportunity, and he just wanted to lay that in. And then even with the whole black on black crime thing, I think he expected more from Stephen A. Smith than your Skip Bayless. And so, you know, you're going to run with this ongoing narrative, you know what I'm saying? And not only run with it, but go so hard in the paint over it. It's just like, I expected more from you, brother. So that's how I take it.
You know, I don't even think that's fair, though. I don't think it's fair to compare Stephen A. Smith to Skip Bayless in terms of how they have approached the coverage of LeBron James over the years. For me, the only thing I disagree with Kevin on in his flow is I don't think that LeBron James was defending Bronny James. I feel like LeBron James was defending LeBron James.
He was.
But check it. Like, you know, LeBron has so much money that he can buy almost anything. Anything, any creature comfort, any luxury, any car, any house, anywhere in the world. The world is open to him. But the one thing that he and other wealthy people cannot buy to this point, but I can predict in the future they will be able to do this, is genetic destiny, right? LeBron James can buy anything, but he cannot pay to make his son an NBA athlete. He cannot do that, right? That is out of his control. Now, in the future, I suspect that wealthy people will, once science catches up to it, wealthy people will have the money and the access to genetically manipulate their children in womb to determine genetically who and what they're going to be in the future. That is going to happen at some point when it comes to humankind. That's a future conversation. But that's what it comes down to. LeBron is in his feelings about him. It's not about Bronny. If Bronny is on top of his game, he don't even know about any of this because he shouldn't be watching any social media whatsoever. And even if he is, he's so focused on his opportunity that it don't really matter what Stephen A says or anybody else, right? But LeBron is in his feelings because he is the greatest NBA player of all time, and his son is barely in the NBA. And I'm sure on some level that must bother him. You cannot pass down that kind of genetic greatness just yet. One day they'll be able to do that, and then we'll have future conversations on how that should be legislated and who will be allowed to be NBA superstars and who's going to be 7'5" with handle. All that stuff will be determined by scientists in labs in the future. Get ready for it, because that's what rich people want. Once they secure their future financially, they want to secure the future for their children genetically. Mark my words.
Yeah, here's one thing I would add on to that. And I agree with you. I think the confrontation was more about LeBron and himself than it was about his son. But here's the one thing that I would say. Again, just kind of going back to I think what Stephen A's premise is. Like nobody is dissing LeBron for being a dad, right? And defending his son and advocating and supporting his son. Any father is going to do that. But I think the point is when you invite opinion, like here's the hypocrisy of what LeBron was doing, is when he was pumping up his son in the media. He had no problem with the media coverage when he was pumping up his son. He wanted that smoke. He wanted all of the opinions when he was pumping up his son. But when you do that, there also comes the negative side of that when the performance is down. And this is the problem that I have with LeBron and some of today's athletes. And I know because I have this same conversation on a much lower level with the players who play for my semi-pro team. These cats are sensitive, man. This new generation of athlete, and they're sensitive. You can't say nothing to them without them getting in their feelings, without them getting their feelings hurt, butt hurt. And then they always got something to say. It's different than when we were coming up where, coaches could cuss you out and people would talk and you just kind of roll with that. Like these cats today, man, you can't say nothing to them. They just too sensitive. And especially in this environment where you got a lot of social media and everybody's got an opinion, you can't be thin-skinned. And that's my problem in this situation. You can't want the praise and be out there promoting and putting your stuff out there and not recognize that this is the field you play on. People got opinions. They're going to say everything. They're going to say things. And you can't get butthurt behind it. So what LeBron is doing is he was like, yeah, when I'm promoting my son, I'm advocating him. It's all good when Stephen A and others are out here talking positively. But the minute you start talking negatively about Bronny, he wanna have something to say about that. Again, dude, you are the most famous, polarizing athlete on the planet. Because LeBron has an activist component to him, which makes him polarizing. Even going back to the decision, taking my talents to Long Beach. So not only are you the greatest player of your generation, you're the most polarizing, playing on the most famous team in professional sport, basketball, and you have a son. That's the field you playing on, bruh. And you can't be sensitive when the opinions come at you like that. And that's the problem I have with LeBron in this situation.
LeBron is the king. This is why I'm wearing my crown right now. And what he says goes. No, honestly, though, I think that's a whole lot that Kevin just said. And I would feel that way if every time there was a critique LeBron has something to say. He doesn't. It's just this particular this particular time, and he had enough. And so we're not going to sit up here and act like he's super sensitive and soft. He is very much strong and opinionated, and in this time where people want people to just shut up and dribble. I'm glad that he is an athlete that understands his value, his worth, his voice, and is not afraid to speak up when necessary, and to defend that, and has the money. Don't feel like he has strings behind his back that he has to be muzzled from something that he truly believes. And if there's a narrative out there that he wants to change, well, the king can change that.
Hey, I like that.
I thought you had the crown because you was the queen, TNT, not because
I am the king of Cincinnati.
Go ahead, king.
King.
I like it.
I'm the woman king.
I like it. Let's move on here. So from one public figure in a public sort of confrontation to another, our vice president and Cincinnati resident, J.D. Vance, was apparently confronted by protesters here in Cincinnati. And then he went on social media to condemn them. I'll put up the comments in the section. But apparently he decided to take a stroll during the afternoon with his young child, I believe his young daughter, and some people who have a strong opinion about the Trump administration's stance on Ukraine basically confronted him. This is what J.D. Vance put on Twitter. Today, while walking my 3-year-old daughter, a group of Slava Ukraini protesters followed us around and shouted as my daughter grew increasingly anxious and scared. I decided to speak with the protesters in hopes that I could trade a few minutes of conversation for them leaving my toddler alone. Nearly all of them agreed. It was a mostly respectful conversation, but if you're chasing a 3-year-old as a part of a political protest, you're an S person. Do you have empathy for the vice president? What do you think about his comments after being confronted by protesters here in Cincinnati?
If it was MAGA people chasing Kamala Harris, y'all be up in arms. I'm not saying he's the vice president. He doesn't need to be finagling downtown, going anywhere. Go do something. You're not a normal person anymore. Anytime you step outside, you're subjecting yourself to a political grandstand, which in my opinion, I feel like this is an opportunity here for him to go out and let's see what I can get myself into today with the Secret Service over here and over there and not knowing what's going to get. Come on, man. But on the other side, if it was MAGA going after Kamala Harris while she was trying to go to Starbucks just to ask her a couple of questions, you guys would be upset with it. So let's think of it subjectively. That's why I wanted to speak first. Let's think of it subjectively before you guys go in on J.D. Vance being this and that and that. We all know it's a political grandstand. That was for the headlines and for him to go out and tweet something just to get some stuff going, because Cincinnati, Ohio is about to be the hotbed of politics 2025 going into 2026. And then I'll rest right there with that.
All right. Anybody got empathy for J.D. Vance?
Hell no. J.D. Vance makes me embarrassed to be from Ohio. Like, really. And that whole episode meeting he had with Zelensky the week prior was part of the reason people were upset as well. Just the international relationships that he just disrupted with his stupidity and lapdog behavior for the president. What he should have told his 3-year-old child is like, baby, the Constitution said people have First Amendment right to protest. And that's what this is. But you're fine. You're with me, and I'm going to protect you. We have guards here to protect you. No one's going to bother you, baby. You're going to be just fine. And we'll just walk right in. It's just another way to try to stick it to them. It's like, oh, shame on you, wagging your fingers, browbeating. And when you know what it is, you know what you're saying is outrageous. What you're doing in office is outrageous. And you're an embarrassment to this state. And so just like Tarris said, the backlash should be expected. Why are you bringing your 3-year-old daughter anywhere to any function? You know, when your own party is telling you to not do downtown halls or whatever. You know, if you thought that you were going to be embraced by, you know, your constituents, maybe not. You know what I'm saying? But you have a lot of explaining to do. And so for me, I think that was just a cheap blow on X. And when I get a chance, I'm going to let him know my feelings on that. He's weird, and I have no respect and no sympathy. I feel bad for the baby if she was scared, but as a father, he could take some notes from LeBron James, let her know she's protected, and explain what our First Amendment rights to free speech and to protest actually means. Make it an educational moment.
So, you know, I'll say this. I'm usually one of those people who are like, when kids are involved, whether it's politics or whatever, like keep the kids out of it, you know, and people should, I think people in general should respect that. On the flip side, I would say from JD Vance's point of view is you are the vice president. Again, it's kind of like what I was saying with LeBron. You know the field that you playing on. You know, anytime that you step out of your house into a public environment, particularly in these political times, and people recognize you, that's what you're going to get. So I think that, look, he's entitled to have time to be able to get with his family and go on a walk and have it be peaceful. But there are ways in which you could set that up with Secret Service and whatnot to where you can get that alone time with your family where you don't have to deal with the masses in that regard. So I think the fact that JD Vance found himself in that situation, because that was the thing that I kept asking myself. I'm like, where's the Secret Service people at that they're actually allowing these people to get like that close to JD Vance, you know, and his kid? I was kind of wondering about like, where was the security perimeter? Because just from a pure safety standpoint, like, I'm not saying that anybody in that group would have done anything, but you don't know. In these days and times, you just don't know what people are going to show up for. So if I'm JD Vance and I'm out with my kid, I'm definitely going to make sure, hey, y'all, you know, folks is crazy. You know, I mean, and here's where I'll give him credit in that situation. You know, he at least did try to hang around and talk to the people for about 5 minutes and hear from them and deal with them, where it would have been real easy to just keep it pushing and not even acknowledge it. So whether you like what he said or not, I at least give the dude credit for staying there for 5 minutes or whatever it was to even attempt to engage with the crowd, because he didn't have to do that. A lot of other people might not have done that and would have made a bigger deal out of it. Now, his misrepresentation of the situation on Twitter is another conversation. He completely misrepresented, you know, in the Twitter, where he made it seem like folks was chasing down him and his little 3-year-old while they were out there. This is the part of JD Vance that don't allow you to have sympathy or empathy for him, even if you wanted to in that situation. Because, dude, people can clearly see from the video that's there what it is. But you go out on X and you misrepresent it, and then you call them shit people, right? Like that's totally out of bounds right there, in my opinion, to do that. Like, that's juvenile right there. So every bit of credit that you want to give him for hanging in there and doing that, he erases all of that by going on X and doing what he did there. And this is the part about JD Vance that you can't trust, that makes him appear fraudulent, flip-flop, and all of those other type things, because it wasn't necessary. He could have curried some favor by standing up and at least spending 5 minutes talking to this group of people. He could have, you know, again, I was willing to give the guy some credit for that, but he undoes all of that with the other stuff that he does.
Hey, Phil, your take on it? You got any empathy for JD Vance?
No, I don't, but probably for different reasons. When I was on Cincinnati City Council, I had a political consultant, and when I was dealing with groups, shall we say more militant groups or union people representing city employees, do you know what my consultant used to say? He used to say, Phil, let's hope they throw tomatoes at you. Let's hope they do that. Okay? because he was recognizing that my base did like that group or either of those groups, for example. And by the more, I remember one time, this goes way back, we had this meeting where I was big into privatization. I was trying to privatize a lot of city services. And there was this huge mob that came down. I mean, it was packed in City Hall, and they were saying all kinds of terrible things about me. Do you know, I got the better publicity that night than in my entire political career. Okay. And so I would not at all be surprised if JD Vance, sounds harsh, used his kid as a prop. Okay, particularly if he knew, I don't know if it's clear, if he knew there were protesters around, but he knows that those people protesting are just the people that his base doesn't like. And it would not surprise me if he used essentially his little kid to gin up sympathy for him. All these nasty left-wing lunatics are harassing my little 3-year-old daughter. As most of you have pointed out, that he had to have been surrounded by Secret Service. Come on, okay? I mean, I don't care what he was surrounded by Secret Service. And so there was no threat to him with those guys around. Now, again, I can't prove it. Maybe he was caught by surprise. But the fact that he then tweeted about, he did tweet, it was his tweet, right? Am I right, guys? He tweeted about it. If he really was, if this was all spontaneous and he was really upset, probably he would have just gone, he probably would have not tweeted about it. But the fact that he did, in my view, was just to create sympathy for him with his base.
Yeah, I think that I agree with Phil 100%. Yeah, we look at this very similarly. Let me play a clip for you.
And can I also say
what? Yeah, go ahead, jump in before I get the engine revving up.
The fact that he, as Kevin was saying, and I think it was good that he took some time to talk to the people. Well, guess what? Everybody loves that. When you're being harassed when you have protesters and the statesman walks out of his house and says, let's talk about this. So I don't even give him credit for that, because I think that was just another example of trying to gin up the kind of press.
Yeah, okay, his brother, I can see his brother at his next campaign rally talking about those SHIT people at his next campaign rally. I mean, this is political move. That was a chess move, because I'm telling you, Cincinnati in 2025 is going to be a hotbed. What they tried in Cincinnati is what they're going to try 2020. It's going to be a litmus test for the midterms. With if I'm not mistaken, AFTAB versus whoever is going to be a litmus test of what's going to happen for the midterm. So they're going to test the waters, but they can't do too much right now because he hadn't won the primary yet. He's got to win the primary. They can't throw all the dice out there. He's got to still get past the primary. Then we'll see.
Tarris, if you don't mind my saying, it'll be a cold day in hell before a Republican ever gets elected mayor of the city of Cincinnati. It will be a cold day in hell. And with all due respect, I don't know what kind of how it's a litmus test. I can tell you myself that I was the last generation of Republicans elected to city council. Okay, so believe me, AFTAB has nothing to worry.
I don't believe that at all. But let me step into this topic real quick. So I want to play a clip for you from one of my favorite movies of all time, and then I'll deliver, my thoughts on it. But this is what I see when I saw the video actually, and also read about what happened with JD Vance. This is what I see.
Oh my goodness! Whoa!
That's JD Vance right there. That's JD Vance.
Oh no!
That's JD Vance. That is JD Vance. Oh, you should not trust these people. You cannot trust these people at all.
Not so much.
Al Green was the guy in the courtroom.
What movie was that, by the way?
The guy in the courtroom when Al Green got thrown in the House chambers. He was the dude from the courtroom.
Yeah.
Will you guys please only use movies that I've seen?
That's New Jack City. That's
so
what
you got to check that out, Sexy Phil.
Yeah,
You gotta
JD
What's
Vance
that?
put his child in the line of
Nicole,
fire.
suggest some movies I could watch that would get me to kind of fit in a little more,
JD
if you know what
Vance
I
put
mean.
his own child in the line of fire. Let's be real here. We're all grown folks. We're
Mhm.
talking about the vice president of the United States. Everywhere he goes, he's surrounded by Secret Service. Everywhere he goes.
Mhm.
Have you ever been around the president or top dignitaries when they're being rushed past you by Secret Service or armed protection? Let me tell you something, buddy. You don't want to mess around with them people. Your life is on the line. There's no games played. You can feel the energy. That man at no point, at any point, was his life or the life of his daughter, their well-being, in any kind of jeopardy. Because, buddy, let somebody had did something to JD Vance or make some type of move toward his daughter, it's lights out for you.
Yeah.
Nothing can save you. It's lights out
They
for you,
probably would have been
period.
shot.
So JD Vance, nobody can tell me that either one or two things are true. Either JD Vance was told by his Secret Service to not do it, and he did it anyway, or he knew what was going to happen and went out there just so we could have something to go back on Twitter. I think Phil is right on point. You know, the Republicans are always playing games and running stunts and doing performative politics so they can gin up, you know, success with the base and get people to think that they're like the enemy of the liberals. That's all this is. This man was willing to use his own child as a prop so he could put something on Twitter. What kind of man does that? And the
Nate,
nerve, the shame
Nate,
of
will
this
you
man,
please?
the shame of this man, while they are stripping assistance from Ukraine right now, and people are dying.
Right.
While people
That's
are
right.
dying in Gaza because this administration is pulling back their resources. And now you want to talk about your overprivileged daughter? The shame of this individual. That's what I see. I don't have any empathy whatsoever. I feel more empathy for the child that JD Vance is her father than I do that she was at threat by that crowd in any way whatsoever.
Nathan, I'm begging you to please send that clip to him on Twitter on X. with the short, like, this is what you did to your child, please. And
Yeah.
I hope everybody that's on the feed, go to his Twitter and let him have it. Just like, don't use your child as a human shield or a prop. That was awful. You should be ashamed of yourself. But that clip, that just took the cake for me.
Yeah, you put your daughter in the line of fire because the Secret Service had to tell you, sir, there's protesters outside. If the Secret Service did not tell the Vice President of the United States what the situation is around your building, then they wouldn't even be in that position. And like I told you, man, I was at the RNC. I seen the dignitaries rushing past you, and they're surrounded by Secret Service and they're surrounded by special forces. You are not gonna do a darn nothing because you can tell that these are not the kind of people that you play with. And there's no way that he or anybody else around them was ever in danger. That they are not going to let that happen. You can't even get close to them. Look at Floyd Mayweather. You can't even get close to Floyd Mayweather, let alone the Vice President of the United States. Please. He and his daughter are well protected. They were never in jeopardy. JD did this, just like Phil said, just so he could run back to MAGA and say, look, the liberals don't like me. And all they're doing is fomenting more division. Division, us versus them versus us. This ain't healthy for our country, y'all. This is not healthy for us one bit.
And the crowd was very tame and really, doing what is within their First Amendment right. They had their signs and peacefully protesting. There was nothing outlandish, nobody, destroying anything, and no threats of violence, even though this party is the Republican Party is the party that seems to be okay with political violence. I would think back to Biden's State of the Union address, and when he made the comment about that political violence should not be done anywhere. All the Republicans sat down. They didn't stand up for that. Like that, we can't agree that it shouldn't be political violence at all. So coming from a party that want to make sure, even lunatics have guns, and you seem to be okay with January 6th and okay with a president that let loose of people of January 6ers and rioters who beat on police and are like right-wing extremists. You're okay with all of that. You're okay with that political violence, and then come here and an example of a peaceful protest, you want to set the alarms like, oh, how dare they? That's as peaceful as it's going to get. Be thankful, because it could be a lot worse. And the environment that they're creating and promoting gives that.
Can I say, even though it's a little off track, it's another example of the kind of hypocrisy that Nicole was talking about. Recently, the Trump administration, as you may know, arrested and is trying to deport some guy who's actually legitimately in the country. I think he has a green card and he's pro-Palestinian. As far as I can tell, all he did was, I may not agree with his position, but it was a free speech thing. But they're trying to make an example, and they're trying to deport him because, and they're trying to hold money back because of, quote, anti-Semitism, which, I mean, I'm 100% against anti-Semitism. But where was Trump on anti-Semitism back in Charlottesville when those Nazi and Klan guys were walking around with their torches shouting, "Jews will not replace us"? Everybody remember that? Yeah, where was his concern about anti-Semitism then? Well, the answer is that was okay with his base. Okay, so he was very careful not to really come down hard on those Klan people. And just, I know it's a little off track, but you just put the headline up anyway there, Nathan. So understand something. I'm ethnically Jewish. When he comes out against when he's pro-Israel and all this stuff, he's not doing that to get Jewish votes, because most Jewish people are not going to vote for him because for civil liberties reasons and other. He's playing up to the evangelicals, okay? Because I know from my friends who probably a majority evangelicals, there's nothing more important to them than Israel. And so just be able to see what the motives are here. He's trying to play up to that group, the evangelicals. At the same time, when Charlottesville happened, he's trying to play up to the white supremacists.
His name is Mahmoud Khalil. I'll put an image up of him in a little bit. But yeah, basically from what I read, and if someone has other information, please share it. But from what I read, some undercover law enforcement agents rolled up on him without a warrant and arrested him. And it looks like it was all politically motivated because he took a position that Trump and the Trump administration didn't like. So he is a legal American, and a judge has stopped the Trump administration from deporting him. But this goes back to what I said about this whole immigration thing. This is not about so-called illegal immigrants. It's about everything around it. And this is disastrous for our country. So now, under the rationale of sort of cleaning up illegal immigrants, now Trump and the Trump administration want to round up people that disagree with the administration. We're living in different times.
Well, it's moving in that direction. They tried to say, oh, because he supports Hamas, that he's supporting terrorism. I think that's quite a stretch. But we are definitely moving in the direction of people's losing their free speech rights.
Well, I think the good thing about this is you got to look at it and you got to say again, and this is what I keep going back to, is do our institutions stand up to these illegal actions that Trump and his administration try to put forward? And again, to this point, you continue to see some of those guardrails holding up, and to the extent in which the courts have knocked this stuff down. And I think.
Whoa! You're saying that what are these guardrails?
I'm talking about our court system, Phil, where this guy went to court and they stopped what Trump was trying.
Okay, that so far.
That's excuse me. That's what I said. I said so far the institutional guardrails.
In this case, you mean? In this particular case, the guardrails.
And in others, there have been other cases where he's tested it.
No.
Phil,
yeah. How about
the institution of the DEI policies at UC? Isn't that being challenged in court right now? And wasn't there a stay put on that? Okay,
it was challenged.
So
there
again,
was a
Phil,
stay.
you want to argue, and I get that you want to send this always constantly alarmist message about Donald Trump and the falling of the democracy. But what I can't let you do is conveniently ignore the cases where our court system is pushing back on this.
Let me ask you
finish
this:
my point,
the
please?
Supreme.
I'm not saying that these aren't things that we shouldn't be concerned about. Absolutely. But one of the things that is encouraging to me is, in spite of what Trump is trying to do, that at certain levels, the court system is saying, no, you cannot do this. You're going too far. Yes, Trump is trying to attack free speech, peaceable assembly, all of these things. But in every instance where he's tried to do this, he has been turned around and flatly rejected. And that is something that cannot be understated, because once that goes away, then yes, we're absolutely in trouble. That's why I'm not willing to go as far as Phil is on some of these points and saying that the democracy is lost, because at least to date, in these cases where it has gone to the courts and it has been challenged, he's not been able to successfully do these things.
Okay. Let me ask you this. The U.S. Supreme Court last year said that a president, in this case Trump, can commit any kind of criminal act as long as they label it an official act, and they can't be prosecuted. Not only while they're in office, they can't be prosecuted after they're out of office. Now, this court is supposed to be, what is it they call them? Strict constructionist, meaning if it's not in the Constitution, we don't go along with it. Well, guess what? There isn't anything in the Constitution that gives immunity from criminal acts for any kind of elected official. They pulled that, pardon me my language, out of their ass. They just made that up, and they are allowing this president and future presidents to break any law, and they can't be prosecuted. So, with all due respect, I don't think I'm overstating my concern.
I'm not saying that we shouldn't be concerned. What my point is, and this frustrates me time and again on this podcast, is you take what I say and turn it into something else and make a comment on that versus what I said, which my comment is to date, which you cannot refute, which is factual, that when he's challenged these things, the courts so far have turned him.
But what about that case I just mentioned? What about that?
I might not have been on when you mentioned that. I might not have been on when you were talking about that.
I just talked about.
So Phil, what criminal acts has Donald Trump committed to date while he's been in office that the Supreme Court has said he's gotten away with?
Yeah, I'll tell you right. Well, first of all, you don't have to say he's only been in office a month.
So Phil, you're talking about a hypothetical. You're talking about a court ruling on a hypothetical. I'm saying what criminal acts have Donald Trump committed that the court is letting him get away with right now?
Stolen documents and trying to overthrow the government.
Oh, news, man.
Which he did.
So first of all, the criminal documents case, did they not get rid of that case? Not Trump got rid of it.
Yeah, no,
they dropped that case. They dropped that case.
No. Well, they dropped them all when he got elected. Okay, because you can't. Okay, but the system didn't hold. In fact, Trump ought to be in jail right now for those things. He committed serious felonies, and the U.S. Supreme Court said, "Hey, pal, you got immunity, no problem."
Yeah, I mean, for me, the system didn't work when it came to holding Donald Trump accountable on the federal level. That particular documents case, as I understand it, was presided by a Trump-appointed judge who,
she would have been overruled if the case.
From my opinion, she went the extra mile to slow it down, hoping he would win. And then when he won, they dismissed it. So having seen the system not work for Donald Trump, I don't think it's a stretch to feel cynical about the system not holding up to the attacks.
But it has, Nathan. Like that's
tell that.
This is the part that frustrates me. Is
I understand why you're frustrated, but listen to what I'm saying. Though,
and I'm not saying
I haven't even finished my point though.
That cynicism doesn't have its place.
Yeah, but I haven't even finished my point.
Y'all don't want to acknowledge when the system has held up.
But you're not even acknowledging that I didn't finish my point. So you're criticizing what? What are you responding? I haven't said anything. So in this case, with this individual, his life has already been affected. He was plucked from the university, and right now, the last I read, he was taken to some kind of detention facility in Louisiana. So sure, maybe in the next week or so, we might find out that the courts find out that the Trump administration went too far, but this man's life has already been affected.
Yeah, I'm not minimizing that, Nathan, but I think there's a difference between saying, okay, this guy was improperly abducted or detained or whatever language that you want to use, and then him being deported, him and his family being deported, or the court saying you went too far with that, he's not going anywhere, and you infringed upon his rights. That's a different resolution in my mind that says the system held up in doing what it was supposed to do and not allowing Trump to expel this man and his family from the country because he didn't like what he said. Now, if the courts say that it's okay, then we are in a whole mess of trouble. But that's not what it sounds like the courts are doing. And so that's what I'm saying.
We don't know yet, though. We don't know what they're going to decide.
Well,
it might come down to who the judge is. Is this a Trump-appointed judge, a MAGA judge who is willing to do whatever Donald Trump wants? Because if this case goes before one of those judges, I think they're more than likely they're going to side with Donald Trump, just based upon what I've seen already.
On what evidence? That Trump has no evidence. They have no.
We don't know yet.
Zero. This is where I'm saying, like, if our court system gets to this point, and I don't believe that it will, but if our court system gets to this point where you can expel somebody from the country with no evidence that this guy has any kind of terrorist connections or anything like that, because that's essentially what Donald Trump is saying, is that, hey, this guy is a pro-Hamas terrorist that, shouldn't be in the country. He's saying all of that without a shred of evidence. They took this guy into custody without a shred of evidence. And so this is what I'm saying is if what you're saying is true, is if the court makes that determination that that's okay, then I agree with Phil. We are in a hell of a lot of trouble, because that means that Trump can go out and just start rounding up any dissidents who he doesn't agree with in this country and throw trumped up charges on them that they're a terrorist or something like that.
That's true.
I'm not willing to concede that our system of justice will allow that to happen with zero evidence. Zero evidence.
It's happened before. It happened to a whole bunch of black and brown people locked up with zero evidence.
Well, let me make a prediction that
it's happened to a whole lot of black, brown, and poor white people. Happens all the time. They get railroaded through the system and end up copping pleas to stuff they didn't even do because they can't afford adequate representation, and/or they just stuck. Happens all the time. And so I would say that you're right. We have to wait and see what happens with the courts. But I would also say that the fact that they already did it is alarming enough. They plucked this man with no evidence from his private life and put him in a detention center. That in and of itself is enough for alarm.
No, I agree with that 100%. But they're trying to make this guy as an example. And this is why this is important for the courts to step up here and knock that down. Because if they don't, he's going to continue to try to do this. This will just be the first of many. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not disagreeing with you that is not cause for alarm. But you got to wait and see how this thing is going to be disposed of. And I am not convinced that our court system is that far gone. And what I'm saying is that up until this point, when he has tried to press the levers, our court system has held up to this point.
It has not. It has not. In the documents case, Phil brought up.
Well, let me try to.
Nathan, here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to say. That the documents case, that wasn't a product of the court system not holding up. That was a product of the fact that Donald Trump won the election. And those who had those cases decided that they weren't going to move forward because they weren't going to prosecute a sitting president. If Donald Trump had lost.
Yeah, but they couldn't have anyway, based on the Supreme Court case.
If Donald Trump had lost the election, he would have still you're telling me he would not have gone to court for the document?
What I'm saying is it was, and Jack Smith said it was much, much more difficult because they had to say, the only way they could have convicted him if he lost was by saying what he did was not an official act. I'll tell you something, Trump could very, very easily, I think, said in court, oh yeah, I told my attorney general to, find fraud. Yeah, I told him that's an official act. I'm talking to my attorney general. So that Supreme Court decision, even if Trump had lost, would have been very, very difficult for the prosecution because, as I said, the Supreme Court pulled that right out of their rear end. They just
I just
made it
looked her
up,
name up. The
basically.
judge in the documents case was appointed by Donald
Yeah.
Trump. She was
Mhm.
brought up through the Heritage Foundation. They've got this farm system for judges, and they want them to go out and hopefully become
It's not Heritage.
Federalists.
It's the
Federalists, okay, the Federalist
Federalists.
Foundation.
Federalists,
And they got a farm system for judges that they're grooming for lifetime federal appointments and also Supreme Court. Eileen Cannon.
But by the way, Trump, they're now going against, if I may say, they're starting to go against Trump, and Trump has been dissing the Federal Society because they're not willing to go along with some of his more extreme stuff. And the one thing that I think is all being assumed here is that Trump, unlike like every other president, even Richard Nixon, basically will follow what the court says. Because as we all know, the courts don't have an army. They don't have a police force. Okay. My prediction is I think he will follow what they say through the midterms. But let's just say that the Democrats take over one or both houses of Congress, and basically he's kind of stuck politically. My prediction is at that point he'll just say screw it. I don't care what the Supreme Court says or any other court. I'm not going to follow it. And his base, by and large, will go along with it. That's
I think that if that happens,
scenario.
I think I can see the base doing it, but not the Supreme Court per se, because it would undercut their own power. But back to the point I was making real quick with Eileen
No. What I'm
Cannon
saying
is that
Nathan,
if you go back and look at that case, Eileen Cannon did everything she could to slow down that case.
no, there's no
And
question about
ultimately,
that. And she got overturned
and
by the Court of Appeals.
ultimately, she dismissed the case before Donald Trump won the election. She just made up some BS and said that the president, Joe Biden, didn't have the authority.
That would have been overturned. That would have been
Might have been, but I'm
overturned
just
if the
saying
case
what
had
she
continued,
did
believe
before
me.
the election, and she dismissed it on some fantasy that Biden didn't have the authority to appoint Jack Smith to be a special prosecutor.
No,
it was all BS. So what I'm
That
saying
was all
is,
BS.
it comes
You know
down
what she
to
did?
it comes down to the
She took
ideology.
an
Hold on, Phil. Let me get this
anecdotal
out, and I'll give you
comment.
the floor. It comes down to the ideology of the judge. That's what we're looking at these days. So yeah, there are judges that will side with Donald Trump because they're hoping to curry favor with him, maybe get a Supreme Court nomination, something like that. We just saw it. This is where we are.
Mhm.
I will say that there have been a lot of Trump-appointed judges that have ruled against him, as in the 2020 election case. Many of the judges that turned down those bogus appeals, bogus lawsuits that Rudy Giuliani and the rest of them brought, saying the election was fraudulent. Many of those judges that refused to accept that and didn't agree with it were Trump-appointed judges. So, in fairness, it isn't.
It's not absolute.
They're not all like that.
It's
Now,
not
you are
absolute on
correct.
every issue, but
You
yeah,
are
you're
correct.
definitely right about that.
Eileen Cannon was a pathetic lapdog and probably was looking for an appeals court appointment from Trump. She'll probably
yeah,
get it, I'm sure. And what she did was so contrary to law. And keep in mind, she had preliminary decisions that were outrageous, and the appeals court, including Trump appointees, overturned those. But and on that decision where she threw the case out, you know what she did? She ignored majority opinions of the Supreme Court and took one little comment that Clarence Thomas made in one of those dissenting opinions about they shouldn't be able to appoint special counsels, and she went with that. She was pathetic. But keep something in mind. About a week or two ago, to their credit, 5 Supreme Court members, the 3 liberals and Coney Barrett and John
Shapiro,
the Chief Justice, John Chief
Roberts.
Justice, 5 of them. Yeah, forgive me. 5 of them did overturn one of the Trump executive orders. I'll think in a minute on what it was on. It was AID or something like that. It was fairly significant. Okay. Now, so when you say, well, the Supreme Court won't do, I actually think, as bad in many ways this court has been, I believe that I believe a lot of these actions he's taking, I think that those 5 members will overturn them because they are so contrary to the Constitution. I'm talking about where Congress has approved or set up a department. Even the Department of Education, I don't agree with, but they set it up. He does not have the constitutional right to destroy that department. I think the Supreme Court will say that. But what I'm saying is, when it comes to that, my concern, as I've said, is he says, so what? That's the Supreme Court decision. It's against, they don't have the right. Vance is already advanced putting this forward. Oh, if the Supreme Court says something that circumvents executive power, then we don't have to obey it. That's where we're headed.
Hold on, can I say something?
This is why
you know what Kevin just said? Kevin just said that. I think
thank you, Tarris. Thank you, Tarris. This is why I can't do this. This is why I can't do this sometimes on this podcast. This is why I can't do this.
Everything he said, everything Kevin just said.
Bill just sat there and said everything that I just said after he argued me down. This is what drives me nuts on here sometimes. And Terrence, thank you so much, brother, for paying attention.
I seen it. I was like
exactly what I've been saying. I'm glad you I'm glad you came around to my point of view. I'm glad you finally came around.
I did.
That's the thing. Sometimes when you talk so much, you can't remember what you said, and you come back around to
that's
a point of view.
Thing. Now that's age discrimination. That's not. You can't do that.
So let's move on here. So
that's age discrimination.
So this happened this week. The Black Lives Matter mural in DC has been removed. There are many videos showing Rokers basically destroying it and paving it over. It's been painted over. I'll show you an image in a second of what it looks like now. And this all happened from a representative named Andrew Clyde. He's a Republican from Georgia. Just think about that. A Republican from Georgia, right, is what led to this action and happening in DC. Now, the mayor of DC said basically she was up against a rock and a hard place. And, they're dealing with the loss of potentially, federal dollars in terms of transportation dollars.
Right.
So another bullying tactic by the Republicans. And she basically came across like, her hands were tied and she had to do it. I think she punked out, and good people should stand on business and let the chips fall where they may. Because if they don't, and everybody bends the knee, where does that leave us? But what do you think? Some might think that this is a step in the right direction. Why do you even need a Black Lives Matter mural? You don't have a White Lives Matter mural, right? Others people feel like this is an example that Black lives really don't matter. What do you think?
I think, as I've said before, that this is an example of why the federal government shouldn't be giving money, or at least that cities and colleges and every other kind of organization shouldn't be taking federal money, because you are at the mercy of them and they can pull something like this. And I mean, the mayor, problem is it mural bound? The mayor had said, as you said, screw it, we're leaving this thing up here, and she's risking, I don't know, probably 40 million or something of federal dollars. This is why I believe that all these entities should stop taking federal money. Get off it. Go cold turkey.
That's what you take from this, Phil?
That is exactly, because if they weren't taking federal money, if the federal government shouldn't be giving it to them, but if they weren't, she could have told him to jump in a. She could have told him to jump in a lake, because she wouldn't be beholden to Donald Trump.
What about the Republicans who are always talking about local rule? You got a rep down in Georgia that's making a decision about DC.
I agree.
That's anti what I thought the Republican Party stood for. Shouldn't that be the focus?
It is. It is. It is. You're right. 100%. And there's many examples of this when they're trying to stop critical race. They're trying to outlaw critical race teaching, or they're trying to influence. They're trying to determine what books school libraries can have in them. You're exactly right. If we were true to what our supposed conservative Republican beliefs are, we should say, hey, I may not agree, but this is a local matter. It's a local school board matter. So you're 100% correct.
Yeah, it's a total disappointment. And I hate the fact that when I was out that way, I didn't get a chance to visit that site. I never got to see it in person. But even beyond that, this is just like white backlash, MAGA backlash, white fragility for the movement that caused Confederate statues and flags to come down south. I mean, all of this whole movement toward ending anything DEI, whatever, it's all a backlash, a back and forth, but it's not the same. You know, propping up the history of people who were against America and what it stands for and everything else, and making it seem like that story is the American story. I mean, it's part of this history, but it didn't need to be honored and statues and everything else in a way that, you know, it makes a certain segment of the country feel, as far as a time in history where, you know, slavery was accepted, and the only reason why these individuals still had it up to the 20th century is just to, you know, uphold in a belief that is no longer what this country represents. And so that fight, I feel, was a righteous fight. This one is just in retaliation. This one is in the lines of hate, and just feeling like any way you could stick it to the Dems, any way you could stick it to people that didn't support this MAGA movement, which was majority Black women and Black men and Hispanic women and Asian women. Any way to tear us down and to make us feel like we are powerless, but we are still powerful. And, you know, I don't want too many people to get discouraged. All things, you know, the pendulum will go back and forth, but it's a shame that we had fought so hard to go 10 steps forward just to go 20 steps backwards in this society. And it's shameful that this society is so laser focused on division and making efforts to, you know, take down things that, you know, really should be a uniting front and not a dividing front. But that just goes to show that, you know, this country has a lot of work to do as it relates to, you know, understanding each other and respecting each other and respecting people's differences.
Yeah, I would say from my perspective, it's not a surprise. I mean, this is right along the lines of what Donald Trump has been trying to do to erase DEI and things that he considers to be woke, and the federal and state governments that are under Republican control are going to try to eliminate and get rid of these things. It's another one of his bully tactics that he's using to send a message. You know, he said it in his joint address to Congress is, you know, America is no longer woke. And he said, we're not going back. You know, that was a clear message that he was sending to the American people, that all this stuff, the Black Lives Matter murals and all of these other things that you're doing, that if we have any kind of federal leverage, we're going to use it to erase and eliminate all of that. So this is no surprise. This is par for the course. And I'm not even, I should know this, but I'm not even sure. Is Cincinnati's mural still out in front of City Hall? Is that still exist? Yeah. So you know how these things tend to go. If it gets to the State House in Columbus, I wouldn't be surprised if the Republicans there wasn't trying to put pressure on Cincinnati to get rid of their mural. I mean, it's like these Republicans, they follow behind. If it works at a federal level and one city does it, then they're going to try to have it roll downhill. So my thing is if you got a Black Lives Matter mural or something like that in your community, and your state might be under Republican control, they might be coming for yours next. This is what Donald Trump is doing to send that clear message. I wouldn't go so far as to say that does removing a mural mean that Black lives don't matter. I mean, you know what I've said time and again on this show about, you know, symbols serve their purpose and their place, and they're nice. But the reality is more about what we stand on, what we believe in, and what we fight for more than any kind of symbol, whether it's a statue, a mural, or whatever. It's, you know, it's what's in the heart of the people, and it's what people are willing to fight for. And really, it's more what shows up in the daily life and treatment of folks. You know, you can have all the murals you want, but if your city is still racist, if you still got issues, the mural is just a symbol, you know, that makes you feel good. The reality is what matters is what's in the heart of the people and how it shows up in the policy and how people are able to live and make their lives work every day. So it's a tragedy. I think that it's tragedy may be an overstatement. It's an unfortunate set of circumstances that that these things are being taken down. I think it's petty, but it's par for the course for what Trump is doing.
Whenever I was think about this, the Black Lives Matter mural in Washington D.C., I watched the actual muralist, the person who put the whole project together, and I got her thought on it so I could, kind of think of from her perspective. And she was okay with it. She was like, it's played its course. It's brought a lot of people together, but now it's time for us to take this movement somewhere else. And what else did she say? She said something about she doesn't want to use this as a distraction and to take away funding from something that's way more deserving than that moment in time. So I thought so much respect for her because she poured her heart and sweat and tears into that, and she had enough, like empathy for the cause and more. I see her as a true warrior. Someone who says, okay, this was something that we had going on, but I'm not going to sit here and I'm not going to die on this. If that's something they're going to take, let them think that is but we're going to be over here moving forward in this aspect. So I think that that part, I agree that it's something that's, it's something sad that's happened, but Black Lives Matter as a movement, yeah. But anything that you can give your opposition or the opposition, say, oh, Black Lives Matter, look at their organization. Look at what they stood for. Look at, you go to their website, they wanted to break up the nuclear family. Look at what they did to y'all the money. Look at what they did all, you know what I'm saying? Get rid of anything that they can hold on to. We knew what it stands for, but anything that we can take that they can use against us as the movement, not what Black Lives Matter ended up being as far as like the money line and all that kind of stuff. That's where I think that we just move along. Let's move away from it. Well, I don't want to. Somebody in the keep asking me about Wilmington. It's actually Wilmington, North Carolina, and I'm very, very, very aware of what happened in 1898 with the Fusion Party, and at that time, particular in history, that was the most black congressmen, that's senators and U.S. Representatives at one time until now. There's just as many or more. I think there's more congressmen that's senators and House Representatives that are black now in 2025 today. There's just as many that are comparable to 1898, and that was the most time. That's whenever the Fusion Party and the Redcoats, the same thing, kind of the red hats, the MAGA hats, how history is repeating itself and how they use propaganda and how it was a whole thing that happened and how they came in and they torched the black town. So Shaba Zulu, I'm extremely aware of that. So I appreciate you asking me that question in the comment. But for the Black Lives Matter mural, I think it's time for us to, it was a good time in life. Let's move on past the mural thing and let's move past it and concentrate on other things.
Can I say real quickly that they're spending over $600,000 in taxpayer dollars to remove it? And you're talking about putting money somewhere else, but just the money just to remove it, something that they could left alone. People work hard. Your friend worked hard to put this together, and the incredible artistry and creativity, almost a $500,000 to remove it. Taxpayer dollars.
Mm-hmm. It just goes to show you that you cannot trust majority Republican legislative bodies in any state on any level. Because despite what Republicans say they stand for, what they really stand for is white men controlling everything that you do, right? Because that's what we see. They want to control the classroom. They want to control the bedroom. They want to control the bathroom. They want to control what a woman does with her body. They want to control what you put in your local city in terms of a mural. This is not about some kind of high-minded, smaller government philosophy. Wake up. They want to control everything. All of it. They want you to do what they say when you say it. Look at what's happening in Ohio with the cannabis bill. Now white male Republicans in Ohio want to change it. They're telling us that the voters didn't really know what they were signing on to. Wake up. You cannot trust any of them. There might be a few like Phil that have a come to Jesus moment and they really want to be kinder, gentler. But when they get in control, they control.
Hey. Just a second. I resemble that.
I was talking about you.
Present that. I think you're using I would say quite a broad brush there, Nathan. Maybe you said that to
just a
get
little
me
bit.
worked
Yeah,
up. I think there might have been I think Nathan was
but I
trying to
was giving
stir
you a
things up,
compliment on some levels.
wake me up and say, "Come on, get Phil's
He
blood
turned red on his shirt.
moving."
I was giving you a little bit of a compliment. Like, most Republicans are not like Phil. But
a little bit.
Not a Republican.
But what I have seen,
yeah. But hey, look, on this podcast, I'll take anything I
what
get.
I have seen from modern day, what I've seen from modern day Republican legislative majorities is that you cannot trust them and they're anti-diverse. This is terrible. Symbols do matter. You got Christians out there that hold on to crosses. They wear crosses all the time. Why? Because being close to it, seeing it, it reinvigorates them. It reminds them. It reminds them of what they believe in. It reinforces it. It's the reason why I want to see little black, brown boys and girls walk up in DC and look at that mural and feel good about themselves. My life matters. This absolutely sends the message from the Trump administration and the current Republican majority that black lives don't matter. This is nothing more. We've seen this over and over again. Whenever black people get a little bit successful in their own towns, what do white people do? They come and destroy it. They don't want to see you happy. They don't want to see you competing with them. This is a smaller example of that, but I think it's huge. I think it's devastating. And
Are you attacking Republicans or white people?
Mayor
or both?
Punked out. She should have stood on business, and wherever it stands, is where it stands. Because you know what? One day, somebody in one of these blue cities is going to do that. They're going to stand on business, and if it costs federal dollars, so be it. They're going to play it all the way out. And that's what needs to happen. Play it all the way out. Let them snatch the federal dollars and deal with the repercussions and all the drama that comes.
Yeah, and the same with the colleges.
Absolutely.
Would you agree?
Play it all the way out, all the way through the courts.
I mean, Columbia University is that they deserve what's. I don't mean the guy who was arrested. They're cutting $400 million for alleged anti-Semitism, and maybe there was some, in that shouldn't be tolerated. But if Columbia University wasn't getting $400 million a year, if they said, hey, we're going to run like Hillsdale, which is a conservative, but at least I give them credit. They don't take government money. And if you say we're going to do things what we believe on the local level and take your federal money, we're not going to be beholden to you. I think that's exactly what
our government should invest in our country and our people and our institutions, especially as it relates to higher education. So when the government is making
should
the federal government making those making investments
I disagree.
in its people and students.
We've had this argument before. I disagree. That's unconstitutional. And I'll tell you something. In my view, the federal government is much less knowledgeable about what should happen in the Cincinnati Public Schools.
We're not talking about the curriculum. We're talking about funding to allow people to have opportunities and to have opportunities at the fundamental goal of having life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And so, yes.
Yeah, but you got that string
they don't have to control if their hearts and their mind are pure and right, and not trying to use bully tactics to say if you don't follow this this pathway or that pathway, we're going to pull the funding. Like these are bully tactics.
Anytime there's federal money for anything, there's always strings.
Phil, but I think the difference in this case, you're right. There are always strings, but the strings that Trump is pulling on this are. The strings he's pulling on this are straight racial, are straight culture warish, like that. That's all this is. These are petty culture war tactics, and this is low hanging fruit. This is easy fruit that he can attack. Because here's what I'll say that goes to, I think, the truth of kind of what Nathan was saying is whether it's a Republican or whether it's a white thing. Look, and I'm not lumping all white people in this category, but I will say this is that the people who were most excited and most enthused about the Black Lives Matter mural were black people. There might have been white people who weren't going to say anything about it, but they was probably wondering like, well, why is this even necessary? Why are they getting a mural? It's the conversation you hear a lot of times whenever you have something that is geared toward black. It's like, why do you need this? Right? Like that, a lot of times, like that's the conversation in the broader white community. Why is this necessary? Why do they need this? And so they may not raise hell about it, but there are a whole lot of them out there who ain't gonna have a problem with you tearing it up or getting rid of it because they didn't see the need for it in the first place.
What about separate graduation ceremonies and dorms that are restricted to just one race? What about that?
I don't look. Where are we talking about? Are we talking about on general college campuses?
No, I know that there's a lot of the criticism and of kind of the DEI stuff. And there are apparently a number of colleges where they like have a special graduation for black people.
At UC, it's called Taimba. Yeah.
Okay.
What's the question?
So the point is, my point is, and I don't know exactly how we got on this, that I don't, you know how I feel about Trump and everything, but no, I do not agree in having a different graduation ceremony for black and white people. Don't agree with it. I think it's contrary to what we're supposed to stand for. I don't agree that you should have dorms that this is the black dorm. This is the black dorm. That is basically I know you're going to disagree with this. It's a form of kind of a Jim Crow thing. It's just who's pushing it. Okay, it's still wrong.
I don't know. It depends on who's paying for it. It depends on who's paying for it.
Jewish people wanted to have their own graduation at UC, I don't have a problem.
I don't think they
as
should.
long as anybody
I
can
do.
participate if they choose to, as is Taimba. If you're a white person, you want to show up Taimba and you feel comfortable, you can participate. But the fact that you don't,
I don't know about Taimba. I don't know about that, but I know there are ceremonies where it's just black people.
I bet you in all those ceremonies,
it's not open to everybody.
Given this country history, we've had to like usher our own, to support our own. It's nothing to say like this is something where other races and other people can't be a part of. They can actually still be a part of it. You know what I mean? You probably be the minority, like in this situation, but you can still be a part of it. But to say that they shouldn't have it, no, because our whole entire history in this country, we've been put to the side, made as like a lower class, have to pump ourselves up as far as, giving ourselves confidence that we are equal and everything else. And so the things that we do when we say black girl magic and everything else, these are the builders, because this society all throughout history has told us everything but. We're the face of crime. We're the, we're the poverty, this and that. And so we need uplifters. We need collectively to be amongst each other, to uplift each other. It's nothing against white folks. White folks have that anyway, because you're the majority. It's some people that can go their entire life never meeting a black person in their life. Black people, you're not going to go in your entire life not seeing someone white. You know what I mean? In most cases, in societies or whatever, you may be the only person at a job. You may be the only black person at a particular school, depending on where you live or whatever. So, it's just too unempathetic for white people to come in and be like, no, let's just make it all equal and everything else, when this history and society has not allowed people outside of white folks to have equal access or equal footing in this country. We've had to work toward that. And then on top of that, even the stigmas, like, you ever seen the black and white doll test? Like, even in our children right now, it's the TV and everything else,
Sorry, I didn't hear that. Nicole,
the doll
black
test,
and white,
like
what?
you get a 3-year-old, 4-year-old child, and you ask them which doll is the nice doll, which doll is the bad doll, and somehow these stigmas, this implicit bias is embedded in even in black people. Like, we're biased against ourselves, and that's what this society does. And so to sit up here and be like, you black people can't have something for you. Yes, we can. Asian people, you can't. Yes, we can, because we are the minorities, and we need groups and comfort amongst each other and support amongst each other, especially in a society that don't always support us. And going back to like the Black Lives Matter thing, we have to remember that was during the time of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery. That was like the trifecta that happened all at once, and there was like among a whole history of just like not getting justice and police getting away with murder citizens. You know what I mean? And so that was the premise of Black Lives Matter. Like, you got a whole, race of people feeling like it doesn't matter compared to police. Like, if a police kill my son or kill me, do anybody care? will I get justice? You know, so it's I wish people would quit acting like they don't understand, but you know, I'm trying to give grace for it. But we gotta open our minds and open our hearts and have more empathy in these moments, and empathy for people that, you know, that don't look like us, and the same for Black people versus white people who don't understand. It's like having grace for them to get them there so we can get to a place of reconciliation, because it starts with facts, trust, and truth, and not trying to divide and disregard and dismiss what is the reality of this country and what it is to be an American here.
Yeah, part of the problem is I think that, again, you spoke about truth. And one of the things when you get into these conversations about why do you have Black this, why do you have Black, is that they don't tell the truth about inclusion. Like, and this is why the dismantling of DEI is such a disservice, and where people don't get it is I think a lot of white people in this country want to believe that the playing field is equal and that inclusion is sort of like the order of the day. And that's absolutely not the truth. The reason why you have so many Black institutions, so many different events and things of that nature is because Blacks were not included. It's not that we wanted to have these things necessarily because we wanted them. We were forced to have them because we were not allowed to participate or be a part of these things that were exclusively white, right? So we had to go out and create our own schools. Because we weren't getting recognition at the Grammys or at the Oscar Awards, we had to create our own Black awards so that our Black art and our Black people were acknowledged, because it wasn't happening because we weren't being included. We weren't a part of the decision makers who were deciding who got the awards and all of that. I've heard a lot of people in Cincinnati, why do we have the Black Music Walk of Fame? Well, it's because Black artists are excluded and there's no evidence of their contributions to the music scene anywhere in Cincinnati that white establishments have a choice over that. But then when that's brought up, it wants to be pretended like, oh, well, that's not the case. Well, then why aren't we seeing it represented? Why haven't we seen it represented for all of these years? So there's this myth of inclusion that I think a lot of white people want to believe in, like everything is fair and everything is open, but it's not. Mainly because we don't even have a seat at the table of the decision makers. And so this is what diversity, equity, and inclusion is designed to offset, is to make sure that we get a seat at the table, that we have opportunities, that there are avenues made available where things can be more inclusive. Everything's not going to be 50-50. And I don't think we are asking for things to be 50-50. But we're just saying, like, we should have as good a shot as anybody else to have our work recognized, to get the promotion, to have a statue built of our people who have contributed, to the city. And that doesn't happen a lot of times until Black folks raise a whole lot of hell or decide that we're just going to go ahead and do it on our own. And then that is projected as being divisive, right? When the division initially and the exclusion is what necessitated us to go out and do these other things. So that's where we got to start telling the truth about this myth that our country, our cities, our states are way more inclusive than they are, because when you look at who the decision makers are, and this is what I always say when I hear about white folks feeling like they're losing the country or somehow they're being discriminated against, look around at who's making the decisions. I'm talking about the real decisions, in our communities and in our places. Where does most of the wealth and the money lie? And it ain't in Black hands. I know that much. I know that much for daggone sure. That power dynamic is vastly skewed in the area of white men primarily. And that's the myth that we need to stop perpetuating, and the lie that we need to quit telling.
And speaking of white men, it's primarily non-Black people that's got a problem with these clubs. Like, I was at the University of Cincinnati. I don't care if the Asians community at the University of Cincinnati have their own graduation. So what? If Hispanic students at the University of Cincinnati have their own graduation, so what? It makes no difference to me. It's only white people that's got a problem with it. Black people, by and large, don't have a problem with it. We don't have a problem with what we see these other people doing as long as we have a shot to build our own. So, the proof is in the pudding in terms of where you see the resistance coming from. And it ain't people of color.
Well, I think TNT made the point, though, even in Black events or things that might be culturally presented as Black, they're not exclusionary. Like, nobody has ever said that whites are not allowed to participate. But what happens is whites won't participate because they automatically assume if it has Black in front of it, that it's Black, that it's for Black only. And that is the problem. I used to say this all the time as a pastor of an AME church, right? Like, I pastored an AME church in Milford, 93, 94% white community, right? And I always used to say that the hardest sell for membership in that community was that when people saw African Methodists, even if they were unchurched in that community, they couldn't get past the African in the name in terms of saying, well, that's just the Black church. That's just the Black church is not. Now, eventually I wound up getting like 2 or 3 white members who were part of that church, but it was a difficult sell in that community just simply because, and we're preaching the same Jesus that is being preached at the white church up the street.
But they don't feel comfortable. They don't feel comfortable. And I can understand feeling not comfortable because I'm a Black man in America, but we just get so used to it and we just carry it, which is part of the source of our soul is that struggle. It's just the way that we carry it these days, but we feel the same thing, especially when you filling out that resume trying to go to the job. You definitely feel it. You walk up in there and everybody look like somebody else and you don't know who you can trust or are you going to be valued? But when white people are in that situation, many of them would decide not to be in that situation, which is a luxury that they can do. And there's a lot of white people with it. They would never do what Black people do. They would never move into spaces that we have to if you flip this. There was an interesting movie. I don't remember the title, but John Travolta is in it and Harry Belafonte. And basically, it's sort of like this alternate universe where the races were flipped and Black people are the majority. I can't remember the name of it, but it is very interesting. Very interesting. There's one point where John Travolta takes his son's birthday. He takes his son to the Toys R Us to get the action figure, and his white son, keeping in mind this universe where Black and white people have switched power positions. His white son, he's like, "Hey son, go get anything you want." And his white son goes and get a white doll. It's a Black action figure. I'm sorry. And his son is like, "Oh, this is the best thing ever." And John Travolta is like, "But it don't look like Dad." And I thought, welcome to my world. Exactly. Welcome to my world. I can't remember the name. I
think somebody, Philip, by the way, that's my man, Philip Turner. I think he said it was White Man's Burden. Was that the movie?
White Man's Burden. That's exactly what it is. It's very interesting. When you switch that, and then you have to look at that lens from a different position. I'm like, wow.
But Nathan, that on some degree, when you think about the pushback that we're getting in the broader society, there is this fear of exactly that. I think that when you have a lot of this conversation going on in the media about white people becoming in the minority in X number of years and this mass immigration, there, I think some of that fear among some in the white community is pervasive. And I think why you're seeing a lot of this pushback and the blowback is this fear, to borrow a line from Public Enemy, fear of a black planet. I mean, it's havoc because they've never had to adjust in the ways that we have had to adjust of being in the minority. And we learn how to navigate it. It's like you said, all of the same things that they feel when they're in black environment, we feel every day, just moving through life. But we learn how to negotiate it. Like you have to, you don't have a choice. It's like, it's either curl up in a ball in your living room and call it a wrap, or you learn how to navigate in uncomfortable spaces every single day.
You have to adjust.
And that is a lot.
No.
I've noted, man. I mean, that's a lot. And I think a lot of people fear fearing a day where they may have to move in that same vein, and that's why you're getting so much pushback from this, because you're right, it doesn't make sense. I'm never offended or bothered when LGBTQ people get something. They get a mural, they get a flag raised, they get whatever symbol. It doesn't bother me. Asian community, what have you? It's like I'm not going to get upset about that, because in some way I don't feel like I'm losing anything by them being acknowledged. But there seems to be this overarching sense among some white people that if you acknowledge or you give something to blacks, to gays, to transgender, like somehow they're losing something. And I don't understand that mentality.
Well, because you got politicians for years and years and years where rather than running on policies that will really have a positive benefit, right? That's one thing. But the real sexy stuff is when you pit the races against one another. Now, politicians do this like Donald Trump, and when they're successful, people say, oh, he's a genius. No, he ain't a genius. That's an old school playbook that's really low hanging fruit. Convince the white man that the brown man and the black man are conspiring against you. And they keep running that same playbook over and over and over again. And these white folks, these gullible, but I think good-hearted white folks, they're only gullible because they want more for their families. They feel as if the American dream has left them. And that opens the door for people like Donald Trump and the Republican majorities to pit races against each other. Vote for me and I'm going to get every immigrant out of here. We're going to make America great again, back to when you went to the grocery store, you didn't have to see Hispanics, right? The good old days. And it works like a charm because people are afraid and also politically dissatisfied. And they're going to keep on doing it because it works.
Yeah.
Keep on doing it. Any last thoughts before you roll out of here? Is anything that was said today you didn't get a chance to respond to, or just something you want to bring up as it relates to today's show? Speak now or forever hold your peace.
The Shaba, he can ask me about black nationalists if I do something about black. I'm not on that, man. I'm for black people, black men. If that answers your question. I don't know what that meant about the black nationalists. I'm for black men. That's my thing. Advocate for black men in black spaces where we are very necessarily needed. That's what space I like to operate in. It's not no Democrat, no. I got a new thing called politically homeless. I'm a registered Republican. I'm very active in the Republican Party, but I still feel like I'm politically homeless as far as that goes. So that's my final thing. That's all I like to say about that.
I have to push back. How are you politically homeless, but you're a registered Republican and you rock with the Republican Party? You ain't politically homeless. Don't try that.
I don't agree with everything.
You're trying to pull
I don't agree with everything that the Republicans do. I don't agree with everything that I don't agree with. And like I said, I wouldn't have voted for Donald Trump. I only voted against Kamala Harris. So and I know for a fact that the Republicans don't rock with me the way they don't want to see me coming. So I know I'm politically homeless. It's not
no, you copping now. But I ain't gonna push it too much. But you a Republican.
Oh yeah,
stand on it. I'm a Republican. And take responsibility. Take responsibility for all this nonsense that you voted for.
Okay.
You were a part of this.
In the same.
You got blood on your hands just like they do.
In the same token, Nathan, you guys as the Democrats have to take responsibility for putting up trash candidates like Kamala Harris, who had no chances beating. If Donald Trump was trash and he dog walked Kamala Harris. So if I got to take blood on my hands, y'all got to take blood on your hands for putting up trash candidates.
Yeah, you just made it worse.
You sure did. I am glad to see Tarris. I'm glad that you are back, because I thought you were avoiding with all the hell that Trump has been unleashing onto the public. I thought you was just trying to avoid us because you have no comeback for any of this. But I'm glad to see that you're here. And happy Women's Month, everybody. One of the federal holidays that Trump has ignored. What's that? So I wanted to get everything. Go ahead, brother. My bad.
Okay. You saying everything that I said that Trump was going to do when we've been out here, he has followed through with. I said First thing when Trump gets elected, he's going to have the largest mass deportation ever in United States history. He's done that. He's cut the border down to the least amount of people coming over the border in history, in all of history. Then I said he's going to get rid of what else did I say? He's going to cut Ukraine's money off. I said Zelensky is going to get his, and we even went down the rabbit hole of why, because of Hunter Biden and the laptop and the Ukraine and
We're no longer leaders of the free world. Again, go ahead. I don't think that was what people thought.
He's done everything he said. Everything. I'm glad. I'm happy to see him shaking the trees and draining the swamp.
So are anarchists.
I told you. Told you weren't politically homeless. You got a home. It's the black guy in the Republican Party. That's your home.
Happy Women's Month.
Stand on it. Is that who you are? That's who you are.
So yeah, the Maya Angelou, Still I Rise, the Fannie Lou Hamers, the Nina Simone's, Mississippi Goddamn, Sojourner Truth, Ain't I a Woman, Michelle Obama, Eleanor Roosevelt, and yes, even Kamala Harris. I salute all those women. My mother, Frankie Butler Kidd, Iris Rowley, Sister V, all the wonderful women in my life, and who have paved the way. Thank you. This country should thank you and honor you. And that's what I have. And all the beautiful women in your life, tell them how much you appreciate them today.
I'm with that. Anything else, Phil? Voice of Reason?
Thank you for that title. You know something? I agree with. I'm sorry. Were you saying Phil or the Voice of Reason?
I was saying Phil and the Voice of Reason.
Oh, sorry. I kind of got a little greedy there. I agree with Tarris that Trump has done just about everything he said he would. But guess what? That isn't good. Okay? That isn't good. Yeah. I will say this. He does. He says he's going to engage in the largest deportation. Yeah, sounds like he's going to do that. By the way, thousands of those people he's going to deport are not going to have criminal records. Okay? They're not going to have criminal. That's just a way of kind of easing it. No, they're going to deport all kinds of people that have never done anything wrong in this country. And yeah, he's threatened that he was going to keep, whether it's CBS or NBC, that he was going to threaten that their license is not going to be renewed. Well, he's put a guy at the FCC now who's basically moving in that direction. Okay, he said that these guys who were locked up from January 6th, he said they were patriots, and he pretty much said he was going to let them out. So yeah, Tarris is right, but hey, there's been a lot of pretty terrible people in history that probably said what they were going to do and did it, but that is in no way a good thing for this country.
So what are you going to do about it? No, I'm just saying in general, whenever I'm like in lives and I like I'm watching things, and my thing is everybody talking about Trump. I'm like, you couldn't beat him. You're still talking about him. You ain't got no plans to beat JD Vance. So I'm just like looking back. I'm like, come on.
Let me tell you something.
We're still on the Congress floor singing "We Shall Overcome" on the House floor. When they're still singing "We Shall Overcome," man.
I don't understand. What's your point?
My point is what
the anniversary. It was just the 60th anniversary of Bloody Sunday a couple of days ago, crossing the Edmonds Pettus Bridge. So a lot of people were singing "We Shall Overcome." It's the 60th anniversary of that.
When they censored Al Green, both sides censored Al Green for having that. You're talking about New Jack City, the New Jack City moment when the judge at the end of the courtroom was like, "You need to get them all." We were talking about Nino Brown, you selling drugs. That's what Al Green looked like getting kicked out of that Trump.
I'm going to have to watch this movie because I'm totally.
Phil, you got to watch New Jack City, man. If you have not seen New Jack City, I'm gonna send you a list of recommended watching for you that you can.
Yeah, draining the stock market.
These are movies. Let me guess. These are movies white people need to watch, right?
Not just white people. These are movies everybody should watch.
Look,
everybody should.
I'm happy to represent the white people in this country and watch
the color
those
purple.
It was
movies.
The color
report
purple.
on Friday.
The first one should be color purple. The color purple. You should watch color purple over and over and over, and then we can speak different languages.
I've heard that's good. But by the way, if you're getting ready to close, to quote one of our infamous presidents, Richard Nixon, I have to say this Friday you won't have Phil Heimlich to kick around anymore. Okay, or at least Friday, because I'm going to Los Angeles to visit my son who's on a film internship. But I'll be back whenever I'm invited the next time. You can kick me around.
All right, yeah, you will be missed.
Hey, Nathan, before we close out, I'm gonna say, man, we might want to get rid of this "Speak Now, Forever Hold Your Peace" segment, because it forever is getting somebody in trouble. It's that one last egg. Like Tarris would have just been better off. He'd been better off just getting on out of here at the end. But you open that door, you set that man up and open that door and allow him to get a last comment in that got him in trouble. You know, he'd left well enough alone. He might have got out of here.
You know, hearing that, I may have to admit that you are the voice of reason.
Hey, I was just gonna say this. I didn't get I had to drop out, and so I don't know how you guys wrapped up the JD Vance segment because I had to cut out there for a couple minutes. But one of the things that I was gonna say, and I think Phil was talking about using that as a political opportunity. And what I was gonna say, if I had a chance to say something, is I absolutely believe that that's exactly what he was doing in that incident. I mean, there are so many different. I mean, he could play both sides on that. He can get on Twitter and do what he did. He's got the 5-minute video clip of where it looks like he's trying to listen to and talk to the families. I mean, like all of that is in these days and times is, you know, social media political gold, no matter how you look at it, because he's going to be able to take that interaction and spin it in all kinds of ways, use his kid as a prop. Hey, I was trying to appeal to these folks. Look how they treated me. You know, you can chop that up into so many different segments that it can work for him however he wants to use it, you know, politically. Kind of similarly, I was going to say the Stephen A. LeBron thing is kind of the same thing. Like, look, that's a viral moment. Now, I'm not saying that LeBron did it intentionally that way, but he could have chosen a lot of ways to deal with that. And you got to know, running up on Stephen A. at halftime of the Lakers game, that's an instant viral moment that is not neither positive nor negative for either one of them. I mean, if you think about it, that's all everybody was talking about, you know, for a day or two or even 3 days later. So it works for Stephen A. Smith. It works for LeBron James. I mean, if I'm Stephen A., I ain't mad about it because, you know, for whatever you might have taken from LeBron, that's a viral moment to get millions of people tuning in the First Take the next day to see what you're going to say about it. So it's like all of it is ringing up the cash register. And that's how these things work these days. When you look at these instances, yeah, we talk about them, but all of that has dollar signs, attention that you can't, you know, media attention that you can't buy, that it benefits you, whether that be positively or negatively, no matter who you are in those cases. And so that was just what I was going to add to that piece.
Appreciate it. TNT, I like the crown. Please bring that back. I like that.
I bought this for my son for his 18th birthday.
Could you bring one for me, Nicole, please?
Love it. Love it.
I've had people accuse me of that. They accused me of having a Messiah complex. So this could kind of fit in fairly well.
You got to have a crown of thorns then. There you go. Hey, listen, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're all busy. Really appreciate you spending a couple hours with us. To the audience, thank you so much. We're planning to be back on Friday, minus Sexy Phil, unfortunately. Tarris, great to catch up with you again, brother. I ain't worried about Tarris. Tarris got thick skin. I can already tell. Tarris built differently. Everything I'm saying to him, he didn't heard it 1,000 times before. He ain't tripping. He got a good life.
Tarris, I've said this before, Tarris can take it, but he can dish it out.
He sure can. Yeah. So I'm going to treat him like my little brother and go hard. Have a great rest of your Tuesday and a great week. And we'll be back with you on Friday at 1 p.m., everybody. Thank you again.
See you guys. See you later.